A lot of black people, especially here in America, always have this conversation. Over the years, I've listened to this conversation. A lot of black people always say, oh, we're different, we're different, we're different. Which is true to a certain extent. Yes, black people are different. It doesn't matter if you like black people or not. We are different. Black people move differently. There's something very different about black people. And this thing that is different about black people is the reason why a lot of people have discriminated against black people for so long. It's also been the reason why a lot of people, some people like black people, matter of fact, love black people, or even are infatuated and obsessed with black people because of that differentness. We don't really know what it is, but everyone can kind of tell, yes, there's something different about black people. But what is it? What is that thing that is different about black people? And unfortunately, I've heard a lot of black people confuse this thing that is different about us black people as, oh, we're special or we're better. I get it. The way the ego works, the ego wants to latch onto anything that it can latch onto. You have some people who are white who claim that they're better because they're white. Of course, I can see the ego also latching onto black people claiming that they're better because they're black. But this thing that is different about black people is not necessarily because black people are better, nor even worse. Different, yes, but there's a reason for that. A much deeper spiritual reason as to why black people are quote unquote different. If you watched one of my latest videos where I talked about now is all you've got, please, if you haven't watched it, go ahead and watch it. On the second half of that video, that episode, after I've talked about my life growing up, I talked about time being an illusion, and I, of course, from a scientific perspective, quoting physics and quantum physics, time truly is an illusion. There's no time. If you haven't watched it, go ahead and watch that video. You can pause this video right now, go watch that video, and then come back. But time in itself is an illusion. Time is not real. And in that video, I described how what is actually now. Now is all there is. Now is all there has ever been, and now is all there will ever be. That may not necessarily make sense to you, but again, go watch that video. I did a good job breaking that video down, but go watch that video, and after you watch that video, come back to this particular episode. Time is an illusion. So in that episode, I talked about how what is existence now, and that existence is encased in what I call the dot of everything. And within this dot of everything is happening all at once. Literally every single thing is happening all at once. Your birth is happening right now. You are happening right now. Your death is happening right now. Big Bang is happening right now. The destruction or death of the universe is happening right now. Dinosaurs happening right now. Literally every single thing is happening right now, and everything interacts with everything. And this dot of everything is alive in its own way. It has a very intelligent consciousness. It's very conscious. It's alive. It is the epitome of goodness. Its goodness is so precise, and the goodness that I'm talking about here is not goodness as we have been indoctrinated as what goodness is. You feed the homeless and donate money and things like that. No. The goodness that I'm talking about is one that is much deeper than we can even comprehend. Is one that we understand as mathematics today. It is precise, as in 4 plus 4 can never be more than or less than 8 anywhere in the universe. It is perfectly precise, perfectly ordered, and everything interacts with everything. That dot of everything knows what will happen, what is, and what already happens. So I believe, this is just my philosophy, that this dot of everything, again, everything is encased within this dot of everything, us included, reality, humans included, the universe included, beyond the universe, metaphysically, physically, all of it. Like literally everything is encased within this dot of everything. This dot of everything has infinite knowledge of what is. It knows what will happen and what is about to happen. When we make choices, it affects the dot of everything, no matter how little your choice is. Even if it's you sneeze, it affects everything. You sleep, it affects everything. You lie, it affects everything. Literally anything. You drop a feather, it affects everything. A butterfly flies by, it affects everything. No matter how minute you think whatever it is that you're doing is, or insignificant, whatever it is that you think you're doing is, it affects every single thing. The reason why I'm saying all of that is, it's as though this dot of everything knows that time will come in the existence of humans when a particular race, aka the white race, will think and believe that they are more superior than another particular race, or every other race, but especially black race, and will subdue them. As a result, in compensation for what is to come for these other races, but especially the black race. That dot of everything has given the black race what I call a buffer. Now, this buffer, don't get too hooked on the words, because if you get hooked on the words, you will lose the meaning of what I'm trying to talk about. Quoting Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite writers, words are signposts, okay? If you hold on to the words, you miss the point of what I'm saying. But if you listen to me with spiritual discernment, you know exactly what I'm talking about. A buffer is just a word that I call it, but your spirit probably understands this word as something totally different. But it's a compensation for what is to come. The dot of everything has gifted every other race, not the white race particularly, but every other race, a buffer. And there's hierarchies to this buffer, and I believe that the black race has the most of this buffer in the context of race that is. This buffer is formless. It is a gift. It's something that flows from a place where time doesn't exist, and it manifests itself in a physical form. The way that it manifests itself can be seen as different, if that makes sense. It can manifest itself in the fact that when you see black people, a lot of black people seem very energetic, whether it's in sports, our ability to play sports, our ability to build, this entire country is basically built on black people, our ability to persevere, or even the way we dance, like black people can basically dance to any beat easily. Any beat, like literally any beat. Of course, there are some few exceptions here and there, but for the most part, irrespective of what type of black you are, Caribbean black, African black, American black, any black at all, 9 out of 10, a lot of times, black people can dance to any beat. I know this sounds so trivial, but this is just one of the ways it manifests itself. It manifests itself in so many different ways. This is one of the things that make black people different, but the truth is that the source is a buffer. This buffer, though, doesn't make you necessarily better. See, on a surface level, it seems different. You appear different because of how it manifests. But on a spiritual level, it is actually equal. It buffers you up with the white race on a spiritual level. So the white and the black on a spiritual level are actually quite equal. It's just that on a physical level, this dot of everything understands that this group, the white race, would eventually subdue the black race. And it has compensated in the physical manifestation that is, right, for what is to come. This buffer, though, is not just synonymous to black race. This buffer is human. Everyone has some form of buffer, including people within the white race as well. There are different buffers for different things, but a lot of times this buffer is usually for people who have some type of disadvantage, whether it's a buffer because you're a woman, or a buffer because you're a colored person, a buffer because you're black, a buffer because you're a queer person, a buffer because you're disabled, a buffer because you're not really tall enough, a buffer because your IQ is, relatively average. It is some form of compensation because this dot of everything has a full-on consciousness and intelligence, and it understands what it is to come. Again, this buffer doesn't necessarily make you better. On the surface, on a physical level, you appear different, but on a much deeper spiritual level, you are actually equal. This is why black people appear different. Not necessarily a bad different, nor necessarily a better different. It's just a buffer. And if you think about it from not so much of a deep perspective, but from a physical perspective, a surface level perspective, black people, whether you like it or not, are some of the most resilient people on the planet. All the things that we've been through and continue to go through, yet we persevere. Whether it's black people in Africa doing the best that they can. I know that Africa is a hot mess right now, but the average African is still doing the best that they can. Whether it's black people in the Caribbean, whether it's black people in the Americans, coming up with their own culture, whether it's rap, hip hop, whatever the situation is, black people thrive. They are very resilient in every single thing. And I believe that this is because of that buffer. That buffer gives you some type of spiritual upper hand that manifests itself in different. Again, this is one of the reasons why I am very grateful to be a black man, because I feel like if I wasn't black, I would have missed it. Especially if you're someone who has prejudice over black people. You will confuse this different as something negative. When you already look down on someone, doesn't matter what that person does, you use that reason as a reason to confirm your bias. This, unfortunately, is one of the reasons why a lot of people have discriminated against black people, because they see that buffer being manifested in the way black people act, the way black people talk, the way black people dress, all of that, and they use that as a reason to discriminate against black people because they see that buffer manifested as bad different, when in reality that buffer is actually an equalizer as a result of that perfect order that courses through the dot of everything. Again, I would have missed it if I wasn't black. Now, the reason why I not only appreciate the fact that I'm black, but specifically African, I feel like being from Africa, especially being born and raised in Africa, has given me the opportunity for me to see, live, and be around not just black people, but the bottom of the barrel. I saw poverty. I saw a lot of hardship. I was part of that. You know, of course, my family was not dirt poor, but I've been through a lot of things. I've been around a lot of messed up stuff. And I feel like being a black person, being raised in Africa, I got the opportunity to see not just black people, but the bottom of the barrel of black people. And I can see from a much deeper perspective how white supremacy, a manifestation of the ego, has deceived and robbed a lot of black people the power that they can manifest as a result of their buffer. As a result, a lot of that power that could manifest in creation from that buffer has become dormant. And unfortunately, this is how a lot of black people are stuck, and a lot of black people perpetuate our own pain. Again, this is just the workings of the ego. I'll do an episode someday to break down how the ego works. The ego is a very malevolent, ancient, intelligent, and intentional spirit. It lives in this realm and it seeks to divide and conquer. This ego knows that. It knows that black people have a fair opportunity to equalize what is because of the powers of that buffer. But the ego seeks to dumb that down. And the way that it does it is through white supremacy, which white supremacy is so deep and powerful that everyone, white, black, and everyone in between, perpetuates white supremacy because of the workings of the ego. This is why I am glad that I'm not just black, but I'm African, as in the bottom of the blackness. I get to see that. Any other way, I would have missed it. See, the key here is dependent on what your purpose is in this world and how much possible resistance you will have in this world is going to determine how much buffer you have. So some people have significantly more buffer than others. Some people have very little buffer. There's possibly a white man who has significantly more buffer than a black man. This is because this white man has a manifestation and purpose that is going to be very rough relative compared to this black man who possibly was born into a wealthy family. Everything is handed to him. Meanwhile, this white man is born in the ghetto, in the hood, going through all kinds of stuff, right? That's what the buffer does to help you overcome this reality. On the physical, it looks different. It manifests itself in so many different ways, but on the spiritual level is actually equal. And this takes me to the topic of Jesus. I believe that Jesus is probably the only person or one of the only people in this world that was blessed by the God of everything with the most buffer ever. Jesus's buffer was probably so high that it could possibly kill or heal. And I have my own opinions about Jesus as not agreed with a lot of Christians, especially Jesus's childhood. I believe that there's a lot that happened in Jesus's childhood that possibly triggered his becoming or his journey to becoming when he didn't understand his buffer. But I believe that this buffer manifested through Jesus in so many powerful ways that he didn't even understand as a child, because that God of everything had gifted him with something in preparation for what's to come, the very difficult life that was awaiting him. And he didn't always understand that. And I feel like something very, very significant happened in his childhood to trigger him learning about what is. Then he understood what his purpose was and why it was extremely, extremely important for him to lean into his purpose 100%. But that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother day. I don't want to piss off anyone today.